and tell like a friend, look, this is...
But Spurs, you're exactly right, though, because that's what I heard in the conversation. I heard the arguments that we have against the Cavendish experiment, how what we're seeing, the phenomenon that we're seeing is in the apparatus. That you had to create the apparatus to see the phenomenon that we're... I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, that's what we're trying to show people. But I think people don't get that. Literally, it's like a light's being turned on as we are speaking, like as we are explaining this, walking people through it. And then they kind of... Because you heard Nathan say as well, he had a PhD or someone on there, John, where at the end he conceded, okay, this is the method, the correct way to know something. So again, I think people have to walk through this. And I don't think on Globebusters there was enough time to do, like... But, you know, there's not enough time for Nathan to explain again. Because on here, we've got a lot of time. He'll go over it again and again, and he'll say, right, I'll repeat it again. And people do actually need that. People need to hear it again and again so it sinks in. And, you know, I think in that case, there wasn't enough time, obviously, to explain the full method. But I don't think he did anything wrong. I think Bob will come around and understand that we have to follow a particular order. Otherwise, it's pseudoscience.
Well, that's not strictly accurate. So nobody has to follow any method. However, if you're to assert that you are performing, for example, an experiment, then that's scientific terminology. So as soon as you use that word, well, what is an experiment? Well, it's a hypothesis test. So I'm not asserting that anybody has to do anything or follow any method. The problem
hold on, Nathan, hold on. To know something about the natural and physical world, we don't have to follow a method.
No, the scientific method is an empirical way of establishing the cause of an effect. That's what it does. Right. However, that doesn't mean you have to apply it, and in many instances it is not applicable. If you have a what is question, you're not trying to detail cause and effect. So that sits outside of science. Well, that's a huge amount of questions that can, remain unanswered because you can't put them through the method? Well, no. There are other means of establishing what you want to assert with logic and reason. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your logic and reason can be undone very easily with something else. So what's the solution to that problem? Well, if you can assert that your logical reason and deduction based on discounting of probable outcomes is actually empirical, well, then that would be very useful. Well, how do you do that? Well, I'll tell you. You say the word science when you use logic and reason and deduction and reduction of the correlations that you have and their likelihood of being the cause of an effect. Well, that isn't science. But if you say it's science, then you are a pseudoscientist. If you say it's an experiment and you've not adhered to that method, i.e. a hypothesis test, which is what an experiment is, then you're a pseudoscientist. Now, if you try and rephrase an experiment, and it's on screen, deemed an experiment, Sagnac experiment, Cavendish experiment, and you just say, well, no, this is just an observation, and then you say, but we've manipulated variables. Well, what is the point of manipulating variables for making an observation? You can just look at things. Just look at them. Why do I need to manipulate variables? That would be something that you do in the scientific method. So if you're going to say that, well, it's just an observation, well, what the fuck are you doing varying things then?
So the phenomena question is a what question? I mean, what kind of question?
A cause and effect relationship.
No, you're just saying it's a why or a how or a what.
Yeah.
Is it a what? You know, you were saying science answers this. So phenomena is what is
cause
is what?
And effect. The effect being the phenomena you observe. So when Bob said, I can observe the star rotations. Okay, here you go. Yeah. Wicked. Phenomena. Okay, well, so we've potentially got a scientific inquiry. We can establish with that method the cause of that effect. And how do you do that? Well, you presume what is causing that effect, and then you vary that presumed cause and see if it causes the effect. That's all science does.
Yeah. Very simple, really, actually, yeah. So I think people actually, they don't see how simple it is. They think science is more complex than it has to be. right? So obviously people with the white coats and their credentials, they can obviously tell these people anything simply because of this. So for me, it's a very simple process. If you want to know something, you would follow a procedure in the natural world, science, phenomena that you don't understand.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Like you say,
hold on. UK Truth, how you doing? Hear us?
Cameras on.
Can you say hello, my friend? Give him a moment. Spurs. Hello, UK Truth, we need to say... Okay.
Oh, he's gone.
No worries. Carry on, Chemo. My bad.
Yeah, no, well, you see, okay, so yes, you are right, but people want to know kind of why you are right. They have so this method that you're talking about, different ways, I think that's what people are trying to find out when they know something and which method to use. How do we know things? Yeah? So I think that's what the confusion lies in. How do we know how computers work? Is it science? How do we know how technology works? Is it because of science? And I think that's where the problem probably was, is how do we know what we know? Because he was saying you could just throw out everything if you want to throw out science or something like this.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to illustrate. What I'm trying to illustrate is that when you invoke science with words like experiment, then you are expected to have adhered to science. That's it. And if you haven't, but you go like Bob did, well, I don't know about the cause and effect IVDV bit, but this experiment, well, so you use the magic word that says proof, and then tell me that you don't understand how the IVDV bit works. Well, the experiment is the last bit, the end. We don't start with an experiment and then say, what's causing this? No, that's not how it works. You start by observing something happening, a phenomena, and go, what's causing this to happen? Let's see if we can establish what's the cause. And then you vary and manipulate a presumed cause with a null hypothesis attached, a zero difference result. In other words, when you perform the experiment, you have two sides, one that says you've got it right. You presumed the correct cause, and it did cause the effect. Proof, positive, empirical.
I think people would like to see an example.
My bad, I'm just explaining something complicated, Spurs, so yeah, just jump in, mate. Or a null hypothesis, something that they claim is proof also. Null being zero difference. So when they have these experiments that come out with null results, zero difference, they claim science. No. If you get a null result, you incorrectly identified the cause of the effect. So not a validated hypothesis, but a zero difference, null result. Yet they get posted up as the child of science also, don't they? Here we are with our null result that proves this, my assertion. No. All you're trying to do is prove the cause of an effect. That's it.
One of the things, understand that concept. I was going to say, if because I was asked earlier on, do we have anything where we've actually followed this method and applied? Have we, Anthony, is there anything you can think of where this method is applied? Or Arwin? You know,
well, I'd like to address the situation because, Nathan makes a very good point. But isn't there any other way the word experiment can be interpreted outside of the scientific
method? Not about interpreting the word. What do you mean interpreting? It's not open to interpretation.
Please, if I can please continue my question.
No, because you're saying, is there any other way we can interpret?
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no other way.
If I look the word up experiment through etymology, what I get to see is it basically derived from Old French, meaning try.
That's fascinating. It's a hypothesis test. That's what we are doing when we perform an experiment. And a hypothesis test is a scientific prediction. If you want to, you can interpret that word to mean what you say. That's what's happened.
But only if you're gonna do it in the context of scientific
Exactly,
method.
Arwin.
Right, so why couldn't you use the word experiment just in general, just to test
I'm
something
not.
out and try it out?
I'm not. Am I?
Oh, no.
Well, why are you
Bob
asking
is
me?
thinking.
Ask Bob. Why are you using these words, Bob, when you haven't got the vaguest notion what they mean, Bob? Why is it that when you tell me you've done an experiment, a hypothesis test, and that science has proved the ether, why is it you can't tell me what an IV-DV relationship is? Why is it that you're trying to vary the bloody hypothesis live on air? If you've already done an experiment. Why, Bob? Why? Why am I getting asked about what is needed to be done to produce an experiment when you've already claimed you've got one? Why is this not a hypothesis test if you're to claim that science proves the bloody ether? Well, let's see you prove it then. What's the hypothesis? Oh, I don't know about that bit. I've just got the magic word of experiment. Let's have a look at this guy and what he says about the Sagnac experiment. But it's not really an experiment. Even though it's in bold capitalised type on screen, I'm now going to call it an observation. So we have very literally observation with explanation being used as proof. It's an absolute outrage. If anybody cuts me off again, I'm going to start kicking people because I am furious about this, if I'm honest. I've listened to your opinions on it, and the fact remains we have in our midst, in Flat Earth, practitioners of pseudoscience. They haven't got the vaguest clue how to formulate a hypothesis and ask me on the fly if it's acceptable to substitute the independent variable for the dependent variable. Well, if I'm not going to call the gyro the dependent variable, would it be okay, Nathan, if we call the star rotation the dependent variable? Why am I the person who's pointing out that this is pseudoscience, the one being asked how to formulate the hypothesis, when the experiment is a hypothesis test? So these pretender clown muppets are, in my view, no better than the pseudoscience pretender wiki parroting clowns who come on here and tell us Cavendish is science. Well, what's the IV and DV relationship? Oh, well, I don't know. I'll have a look. Oh, well, we've got more than one independent variable. We've got lots of them. Yeah? That's the kind of crap we get. From Bob, well, is it the star rotation or is it the gyro? Maybe you can tell me how we can make this experiment scientific. What the hell? You don't start with an experiment and then try and make it scientific. You start with the observation of a bloody phenomena, and then you try and explain what's causing it. If you're going to use scientific vernacular, not decide that you've got an experiment on your hands and then work backwards. That's what Globebusters are doing. And then going, oh, well, no, we'll just call it an observation then. So what? Observation and declaration? How fucking dare you, Bob, you pretender clown muppet? You think you can observe something and then declare that we've got ether? How dare you, pretender clown, pseudoscience, pretender clown, wiki parroting muppet? You've got no science and no clue how to even formulate a hypothesis, yet you're telling your audience that you've done experiments. Well, good for you. Net result of your fuckwittery is that you've got the entire ball community claiming you've proven the bloody earth spins with science. And you want to defend to me that you can continue to assert this garbage. So, that's the bit that I would have done if I hadn't dropped on Globebusters in front of about 1,000 live viewers instead of my pittance of 322 people watching. Wow, Jesus.
We love you,
on my
Nathan.
own words.
We love you.
Yeah, it's
We love you, buddy.
not a big surprise there.
That was the greatest reaction. Oh shit!
That's the reason why I keep
That was
following
cool.
Flat Earth. It's so good.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of people watching. But yeah, I didn't
Drama.
want to spout
Drama.
my vitriol at Bob like I've just done. He's not here to react. And had I done it live on air, full-blown row. Now I can take a few seconds, calm myself down, get my shit back together, stop swearing, and say, I just don't want us flat earthers to also be pseudoscience pretender clown muppets. And that's what I'm dealing with on Globebusters at the moment. And it's an outrage. Don't just watch something and declare what's happening. That's total garbage.